Back in Ayabe after the harrowing experience in Mongolia, Morihei entered a period of deep introspection and intense training. He resumed teaching Daito-ryu to his students of the Ueshiba Juku. One of them was a commander in the Japanese Imperial Navy named Seikyo Asano. In due course, Asano recommended Morihei to his colleague and senior at the Naval Academy in Tokyo, a certain Admiral Isamu Takeshita. Takeshita was himself a martial arts enthusiast who had practiced jiu-jitsu alongside American President Theodore Roosevelt some 20 years earlier in Washington, D.C. On Asano's recommendation, Takeshita traveled to Ayabe in 1925 to view Morihei's Budo and to have totally convinced that he was a gifted martial artist. Upon Takeshita's return to Tokyo, he presented a glowing recommendation of Morihei to retired Admiral Gonbei Yamamoto, a two-time former prime minister. This led to a demonstration before a select audience at Takeshita's residence a short time later. From that time on, Admiral Takeshita played a major role in promoting Morihei's activities among the elite of Tokyo society. Morihei made several trips to Tokyo from Ayabe to give seminars to military officers, government officials, and wealthy persons. He relocated to Tokyo with his family in 1927.
和三郎という人が大本教の参謀なんです。現代学の有名な人で東大出てね、学士。有名な人です、当時。それで、それが新聞やってました。それが出口愛三郎と一つになるんです。それでその、和三郎さんの一族にはなかなか優秀な人で、その兄さんかなんか知らんけど、和佐野正教。これが、海軍中将なんです。それ大本教に入っていて。そしてその浅野正教さんの紹介で、らい武道家がいるという紹介で竹下勇さんに紹介する。で、竹下、勇さんがぜひというんで、東京で出てくる。ね。で、竹下勇さんっていうのは、当時、かけようない有名な大将ですから。で、竹下勇さんが、当時の大尖閣者であると。まあ、尖閣者というのにちょっと違うね。大和権兵衛、当時の絶対の権力者、大和権兵衛氏を連れて行く。そこで遠兵がいる。そしたら大変なもんだな、ということで、早速宮中の御所にこれを入れようというんで、推断するんです。で、青山御所で陛下とかそういったところの警備のね、人たち、警備の人たちの中心になっているのを教えるわけです。それで初めてそこから東京での上島森平の活動が開始される。
After Morihei's move to the capital, he taught assisted by his nephew Yoichiro Inoue in a succession of temporary locations. Morihei's reputation had spread by word of mouth to the point that no more students could be accommodated in these small training facilities. Under these circumstances, a permanent solution was called for. With the assistance of the wealthy Ogasawara family, Koshiro Inoue, and other patrons, Morihei succeeded in purchasing a plot of land in the Ushigome district of Shinjuku. While construction of the new dojo was being completed, training moved to a temporary location in Meijiro. It was during the Meijiro period in 1930 that judo founder Jigoro Kano made a special visit to observe a demonstration by Morihei. Highly impressed, Kano sent two of his top judo students, one of whom was Minoru Mochizuki, to engage in intensive training under Ueshiba. The official opening ceremony of Morihei's new Kobukan dojo took place in April 1931 and was attended by many dignitaries, including several high-ranking Army and Navy officers. This is a rare grouped photo that preserves a record of those distinguished guests present on that occasion. Fittingly, the horizontal calligraphy brushed by Onisaburo Deguchi from the Ueshiba Juku is on display in the dojo Tokonoma, the same one hanging in Morihei's dojo in Ayabe 10 years earlier. The training area of the Kobukan dojo consisted of 80 tatami mats, and the structure also housed the Ueshiba family and quarters for live-in students. As many as 20 uchideshi could be accommodated in the dojo at a single time.
Judo が一番すごいと自分は思っとった。だから上島先生の演舞を見てもこれインチキだと思っとったわけですよ、こっちはね。でまあインチキやってんなと思っとったんですけど、それで後で終わって、それから上島先生が「じゃあじゃあ言いませんか」ということで、で僕が出てって「何やるんですか」っつったら「どうでもいいからか」言ったわけですよね。それだからまだ自分は若かったし、その時ちょうど私は柔道が散々だったんですよね。そうですか。それだからちっちゃいですからね、先生。僕よりちょっと小さいんですよ。そうですか。体は横はいい広いですけどね、ちょっと背が低かったからね、だと思って、それからいきなり蹴飛ばしたんですよね。そしたらね、ピャッとこのところ触られたと思ったら飛ばされてですね、でパタパタッとしちゃってね、それで目がしちゃってねそれからなりました。それでその時から入門したんですね。
The Kobukan Dojo was home for a stream of instructors and students that includes some of the most famous names of pre-war Aiki Budo, the name commonly used to refer to Morihei's art from the early 1930s through 1942. Yoichiro Inoue, Morihei's nephew, who later went on to establish Shinei Taido. Kenji Tomiki, founder of Tomiki Aikido or Aikido Kyogi, a sporting form of Aikido. Minoru Mochizuki, founder of Yoseikan Budo. The ill-starred Tsutomu Yukawa, who married a niece of Morihei and was one of the standard bearers of Aiki Budo in Osaka. Shigemi Yonekawa, one of Morihei's favorite partners, who appears on film and in photographs with his teacher. Gozo Shioda, founder of Yoshinkan Aikido. Rinjiro Shirata, later a 9th Dan Aikikai instructor from Yamagata Prefecture. Zenzaburo Akazawa, who entered the dojo at the tender age of 12. Takako Kunigoshi, an aspiring artist whose drawings are some of the most important records of Morihei's early techniques. Although Morihei had physically distanced himself from the Omoto religion with his move to Tokyo, he still maintained close ties with leaders and members of the sect. In August 1932, at the behest of Onisaburo Deguchi, an association for the promotion of martial arts called the Dai Nippon Budo Senyokai was created. This association was tailor-made to support the efforts of Morihei in spreading his Aiki Budo. Morihei was appointed the first chairman of the Budo Senyokai. Branches were established all over Japan, and training sessions were held at Omoto facilities, even in far-flung places like the village of Iwama in Ibaraki Prefecture. The official headquarters of the association were established in Kameoka, the administrative center of the Omoto religion. But the large dojo that opened in the town of Takeda in Hyogo Prefecture soon became the de facto training center. Several of the uchideshi from the Kobukan dojo in Tokyo were sent to Takeda at various times for intensive training and to assist in instructing. Yoichiro Inoue also played a significant role teaching at Budo Senyokai branches in the Kanto and Kansai areas. From even before the Kobukan period, one of Morihei's preoccupations was the search for a suitable successor whom he hoped to marry to his only daughter Matsuko. Various anecdotes survive from several martial artists with whom Morihei discussed the idea. These included the names of Kenji Tomiki, Minoru Mochizuki, and a young judo and kobudo expert named Yoshio Sugino. Finally, in 1932, Kiyoshi Nakakura, one of Japan's top kendoka and a student of Hakudo Nakayama, agreed to marry Morihei's daughter. The arrangement was made with Morihei and Nakayama acting as go-betweens. The ceremony was held that year, and Nakakura was adopted into the Ueshiba family and took the name of Morihei Ueshiba. The founder not only had a successor, but a top swordsman who would stimulate his growing interest in the study of the sword. Due to Nakakura's presence, a kendo group was formed within the Kobukan and even entered competitions. As it turned out, Nakakura, first and foremost a kendoka, found it difficult to master the subtleties of Morihei's jujitsu and gradually came to feel he would not make an appropriate successor. After 5 years, he left the Ueshiba family and returned to the kendo world.
"私たちが見てね、これ八百長だよって、あの時ね、三船十段、柔道の、あの人の空気投げっていうのがだいぶ流行ったんですよね。それであれは三船さんの空気投げと同じやないかというようなことを我々はこそこそ言ったんです。それから羽賀君と私がね、ある日羽賀君を2人で一つ飾って本物か本物じゃないか一つやってみようかって言ってよかろうっちゅうわけで、あれが歯がああいう男らがすぐ賛成してですね、2人で行ったの。行ったら最後そのもうとっつくどころかあんたもう行く前に投げられてしまってですね、もう掴む前にも投げられてしまって、だからもうどうにもこうにもならないですね。それで羽賀君と2人投げられるこのこと
そうなんですか。
投げられてね、そして羽賀君が「あれはお前は中倉本物だよ」って言うわけなんですよね。それで本物だということになったんですよね。そういうことがありました。
A rather unusual training manual titled Budo Renshu was published by the Kobukan Dojo in 1933 with authorship attributed to Morihei. It appears that it was Kenji Tomiki who actually prepared and edited the manuscript. This manual consists of some 166 techniques presented in the form of line drawings. The illustrations were drawn by Takako Kunigoshi, an enthusiastic trainee at the Kobukan and an art school student at that time. Kunigoshi loved sketching, and when dojo members saw her talent, she was encouraged to systematically draw the key positions of each technique as a means of preserving Morihei's art. The techniques covered in Budo Renshu correspond in part to the first level of the Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu curriculum.
"一番初めはね、私自身がそれこそね、 今日こういう1箇条だ、2箇条だって習って帰っても、もんでちゃったら今日何したってよくその一緒にね、習ってる人、なんとかでこう。で全然覚えてないんですよね。とにかく言われた通りするんで。それで自分でわかるつもりで、人のを見てるときに、ちょっと私が自分の心覚えに書いてたんです。ポーズを取ってもらって、それを大体のところだけね。
なるほど。
そんなじっと、そういうことこう飛んできそうなところをね、止まれっていうわけにもいかないから、飛び上がるっていう瞬間ぐらいまで、ちょっとそこ待っててって言って、それで大体帰って、それでよくうちで言われたけど、お前何してるんだって鏡見て、一生懸命こういうふうなとこしててね、自分でやって。
One of the effects of the launching of the Budo Senyokai was the strengthening of Morihei's network of dojos in the Kansai region of Japan. In the spring of 1933, the Osaka office of the Asahi News, one of Japan's largest newspapers, contracted with Morihei to have him teach regularly at the newspaper dojo. The main figure at the Asahi News dojo was a man named Takuma Hisa, who would later also study under Sokaku Takeda. Morihei began spending a week or so out of each month teaching at the Asahi News Dojo and other locations that had sprung up about this time in Osaka. Several uchideshi from the Kobukan Dojo were soon assigned to Osaka, including Tsutomu Yukawa, Kaoru Funahashi, Shigemi Yonekawa, and Rinjiro Shirata. By 1935, Japanese government authorities had become increasingly irritated with the widespread activities of the Omoto religion. The sect now had more than 1 million faithful and was rapidly gaining in influence. The Omoto's many domestic activities penetrated all areas of Japanese society. Onisaburo was also heavily involved in the affairs of Manchuria and advocated that this underdeveloped region become an independent nation. Furthermore, Onisaburo was suspected of funneling large amounts of money to various right-wing causes. Morihei's close relationship with the sect continued due to his involvement in the Budo Senyokai organization. The Budo Senyokai was one of a number of auxiliary groups established by the religion that were frowned upon by the authorities. In late 1935, the government hatched a secret plan to destroy the religion once and for all. A large-scale raid was launched on the Omoto centers in Ayabe and Kameoka before dawn on December 8, 1935. Many church buildings were dynamited and property destroyed. Onisaburo, his wife, and scores of other Omoto leaders were arrested and imprisoned. Morihei too was among those leaders whom the authorities had planned to arrest. At that time, he happened to be in Osaka. Morihei was forewarned of the crackdown on the sect by his student Osaka Police Chief Kenji Tomita and kept safely in hiding. Rinjiro Shirata, the Kobukan Uchideshi, who was instructing in Osaka at that time, describes this episode in a 1984 interview.
Taisho 10年の第二次大本事件。第二次大本事件でですね、その当時は大阪におったんです。で、突然のことなんだけれども、前から分かっておったわけです。というのは、大阪府にね、警察部長の、富田さんがおられたんです。それが立身な、ウィシバ先生の崇拝だった。で、京都の方の、本部の方からですね、警察の本部の方から、ウィシバ先生を逮捕する。だけれども、富田先生は絶対にそういうことない。絶対にそういうことない。ウィシバ先生に不敬罪なんだろうってものが、次に大本には、 入信して信者にはなってるけれども、そういうようなことは絶対に武道をしに生きてる人間で、決してそういうことがない。だけれども、だったらば、大阪府の警察の手で上柴先生を逮捕しなかったならば、京都府の警察官を大阪にやって逮捕させるから了承してくれと。なったんです。それでいち早くね、上柴先生とこういうような。それだけ警察署の署長に森田さんっていうと、これも熱心な、上柴先生の崇拝者。それで、どこに隠れたらいいか。警察署長のうちに隠れ。そして探しに来たわけです。だけど、警察署長の中にいるもんだから。どこに行っても上島で、どこに行ったかね。東京にいない、大阪にいない、和歌山にいない、どこにもいない。わかんない。
Morihei's art was called by several names prior to the coining of the term Aikido. The most common name used was Aiki Budo. This term was in use throughout the 1930s until 1942. In 1935, a singular development took place that provides a clear snapshot of Morihei's techniques at this stage of his career. A famous kendoka named Hisashi Noma, a close friend of Morihei's adopted son Kiyoshi Nakakura, used his Leica camera to take more than 1,000 photos of Morihei demonstrating techniques. This collection, known as the Noma Dojo photos, depict Morihei performing hundreds of Aiki Jujutsu techniques, running the gamut from basic to advanced. Morihei's uke in these photos is Shigemi Yonekawa, one of his favorite students. The Noma photos are full of complex joint locks and pins, and retain many of the characteristics of Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu techniques. Some have suggested that Morihei's study of Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu was brief and superficial. However, these photos provide convincing evidence of the depth of his knowledge of these techniques. The control, positioning, perfect balance, attention to detail, and many other subtleties revealed in the Noma Dojo photos reflect a deep mastery of Daitoryu. Another important technical legacy from the pre-war era is the training manual titled simply Budo, published in 1938, again under the name of Morihei Ueshiba. The material covered in Budo includes preparatory exercises, basic techniques, knife and sword taking techniques, sword versus sword forms, mock bayonet techniques, and finishing exercises. Budo is the only written work in which the founder personally appears demonstrating techniques. From a technical standpoint, Budo offers numerous insights into the pre-war techniques of Morihei. The techniques shown represent a transition phase between the Daitoryu Aiki Jujutsu Ueshiba learned from Sokaku Takeda and modern Aikido. Several of the basic techniques bear strong similarity to those Morihei taught in Iwama after World War II and are similar to the curriculum later taught by Morihiro Saito. Fully one-third of the techniques of Budo consist of techniques executed using the knife, sword, spear, and mock bayonet. Japan had in the 1920s and 30s developed a large presence in Manchuria. It had gained complete political control by 1932 when the Manchu Kuo Nation was established. One of Morihei's most senior students, Kenji Tomiki, relocated to Shinkyo, present-day Changchun, in 1936. With the opening of Kenkoku University in 1938, Tomiki joined the teaching staff and offered courses in Judo and Aiki Budo. Tomiki invited Morihei to instruct at the university in 1939. During this stay, Morihei met the famous sumo wrestler Tenryu, who attempted to test the old man's strength. Tenryu was highly impressed with Morihei's mastery and received permission to take a leave to return to Tokyo to study for 3 months at the Kobukan Dojo. Morihei made yearly trips to Manchuria from 1939 to 1942. He became a martial arts advisor to Kenkoku University and gave seminars and demonstrations assisted by Tomiki. Morihei was widely recognized as one of the top martial arts instructors among the Japanese delegations that visited the continent. As the 1930s drew to a close, the students of the Kobukan Dojo left one by one as they joined or were conscripted into the Japanese military. Activity at the dojo gradually ground to a near halt. Morihei, however, remained busy with his outside teaching assignments at various military institutions. Nonetheless, there were a few bright prospects among the new students who entered the Kobukan Dojo starting around 1940. The most well-known of these is Koichi Tohei, who played a major role in the post-war development of Aikido at the Aikikai Hombu Dojo before forming his own independent school in 1974. Another important figure who would achieve post-war prominence was Kisaburo Osawa, who joined a few months after Tohei in 1941. One other young man deserving of mention joined the dojo in 1942. This was Kanshu Tsunadomari, who came from a devout family of Omoto believers. Kanshu resumed his training after the war and eventually became independent after the passing of the founder. He is still active teaching Aiki Manseido in Kumamoto, Kyushu. Minoru Hirai was the General Affairs Director at the Kobukan. Hirai represented the dojo at meetings of the Butokukai, a government-controlled martial arts organization, held in 1942. It was as a result of these meetings that the name Aikido was selected by the Butokukai and first adopted by the Kobukan Dojo. In 1939, several of Morihei's key supporters began taking steps to create a non-profit corporate structure for the Kobukan Dojo. This resulted in the official approval of the Zaidan Hojin Kobukai on April 30th, 1940. The first chairman was retired Admiral Isamu Takeshita. The board of directors included Prince Fumimaro Konoe, who twice served as Prime Minister of Japan. It was at this time that Morihei first began to give out Dan rankings. The Kobukai Foundation was disbanded at the end of the war by the GHQ, but revived as the Zaidan Hojin Aikikai, which received official approval in 1948. The Kobukan Dojo era comes to an end with the retirement of Morihei to Iwama, Ibaragi Prefecture, late in 1942. This was an especially difficult time, not only for the founder, but for all of Japan, as the major cities were undergoing frequent air attacks that made carrying out any semblance of a normal life an impossible task. Morihei had been preparing Iwama as a country retreat for some time and would go there as often as his schedule permitted. His health had taken a turn for the worse, related to the accumulation of stress from the pressures of his personal life and the war conditions. He appointed his son Kishomaru, still a student at Waseda University, to take over the administration of the Kobukan Dojo, assisted by Minoru Hirai. Morihei left Iwama infrequently for the next 13 or so years and was able to concentrate his energies on healing his body, farming, meditation, and training. He had ample time to himself for the first time in many years to explore his art and spiritual being. Although Morihei's move to Iwama signaled the end of the Kobukan Dojo era, it opened the way for the development of the modern form of Aikido that has spread the world over as Japan's spiritual martial art.